The alarms were still flashing red on my phone when I got the call. Hey, weird question. Did we pay our domain bill? I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny, hell no, but because it was just so typical. Of course they hadn't. And of course they were only realizing it now when the site had already gone dark and customer support was fielding calls like the apocalypse just got web access. I didn't even work there anymore. Let me back up before my blood pressure boils again. I was the ghost in the server room. 7 years, no title changes, no drama, quiet backbone of the entire digital infrastructure. While the flashier departments got promotions for breathing and bonuses for existing, I was the one who kept the lights on. DNS records, SSL certs, back-end patches, auto-renew fails. I was the reason we never made the news for a breach or blackout. Didn't matter, my job wasn't glamorous, just vital. And like everything vital, it got ignored. Until he showed up. Jeremy, the new brand director. Walked in like a vape-scented TED Talk. Gelled hair, teeth so white they should have been considered OSHA compliant, and a PowerPoint fetish that made the interns cry. We're not just a company, he told the room during his first all-hands. We're a vibe. I knew we were screwed the second he used the word synergy unironically. The man knew branding. I'll give him that. He also knew absolutely jack shit about the digital skeleton keeping the whole circus from collapsing. You'd try to explain something like propagation delay and he'd blink like you just asked him to defuse a bomb using Latin. I flagged the domain issue in my monthly report. Pinned it, emailed it, even printed it out and slid it under his door. The registrar had stopped accepting our old corporate card because some genius in finance had let it expire without updating billing. The domain, the primary one, had defaulted back to manual renewals and I'd put it on my own personal card just to stop it from lapsing last year. $19. I never even expensed it because frankly, I didn't want to deal with the paperwork vortex that was procurement. So when I reminded Jeremy, I thought I was doing the responsible thing. The domain doesn't auto-renew, it's on my personal account from last year's emergency, I said, calmly, even dropping the phrase legal liability in case that got through the gel barrier encasing his brain. He laughed. I swear to God. It's $19, we'll deal with it later. Then he waved his hand like he was swatting a mosquito made of competence and turned back to his slide deck about redefining engagement funnels. 3 days later, HR cut my card access and told me my position had been absorbed into a new marketing-centric digital team. No meeting, no thanks, no handoff, just a new badge policy and a broken-hearted security guy named Dale who hugged me on the way out like I was headed to war. Before I go further, if you're into these kinds of real-life poetic justice stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like the video. It helps the team out more than you know, and honestly, we've got a ton more like this coming. Now, where were we? Right, me, sitting in my living room with a cup of lukewarm gas station coffee, staring at the registrar login page, my domain, still listed under my name, still pointing to their servers, for now. They never transferred it back. They never reimbursed me. They never even asked. And as I stared at that dashboard, watching the renewal date inch closer, I had a realization that hit like static off a severed fiber line. I didn't owe them a damn thing. Not my time, not my knowledge, and definitely not the domain they'd just laughed off like it was a joke. I'd carried their online presence for 7 years without so much as a LinkedIn endorsement. I was done. But the domain? Oh, the domain wasn't. And neither was I. I didn't even get a meeting. Just an 8:12 a.m. email from HR with the subject line organizational realignment, followed by a Teams message from some junior coordinator I'd never met. Hi, just confirming your building access will be removed today. Let us know if you need a box. A box. 7 years of unbreaking things no one else even knew were broken. And I got a box. The day before, I'd pinged Jeremy again, politely, clearly, with timestamps, reminding him that the domain didn't auto-renew. I included the receipt from last year when I paid for it myself, plus a heads up that we were 38 days from expiration. I used bullet points. I used red text. I even included a calendar invite labeled Domain Expiry. Need to renew manually. His reply, relax, we've got more important things to do than panic over $19. That was it. No punctuation. Just that smug little sentence. And then, I swear, the man had the audacity to react to my message with a laughing emoji, like I was some paranoid relic clinging to ancient tech rituals while he rebranded our existence into a lifestyle. I didn't argue, I didn't reply. I just opened a new folder on my desktop, labeled it Receipts, and dropped every email, invoice, screenshot, registrar confirmation, and Slack message I'd ever saved into it. If I learned one thing working in IT, it's this. Paper trails are stronger than pride, especially when no one notices you until you're gone. The next morning, my badge blinked red at the turnstile. Dale, the security guy, looked up with this apologetic wince. "They cut your access early," he muttered, like someone whispering a diagnosis. "Didn't even give a heads up." "Not your fault," I told him, grabbing the box from the front desk like some pathetic prize for loyalty. It was already pre-folded. Back at my desk, my former desk, I packed up my notebooks, my spare USB sticks, a half-dead succulent that somehow thrived under fluorescent trauma, and the old coffee mug I'd kept since the first server room migration. The sticker on it read, "Control plus Alt plus delete your ego." I left everything else. The backups were secure, the configs were logged, and the DNS still pointed to their site. For now. No exit interview, no handshake, just silence. Except Jeremy, who strutted past like he was too busy manifesting brand synergy to notice the human infrastructure he'd just severed. "Don't forget to leave your keys," he muttered, like I was the janitor and not the one person who knew what the hell a PTR record did. I stared at him for a second, long enough to see the cracks forming behind the veneers. He had no idea what I managed, what I protected, or what I could break without lifting a finger. And the wildest part? I didn't need to do anything to sabotage them. All I had to do was nothing. So I did. I walked out, calm, quiet, and carrying every digital receipt that proved the domain, their domain, was mine. The first thing I did when I got home, after dropping the stupid cardboard box by the door like a sack of expired gratitude, was power up my personal laptop, light a cigarette, and log into the registrar account. There it was, still mine. Domain, active. Admin contact, me. Billing, personal Amex ending in 0883. Auto renew, disabled per company policy, manual renewal only, and next charge due in exactly 59 days. I just sat there for a while, staring at that dashboard like it was a live grenade nobody else remembered was still ticking. 7 years ago, that domain was registered by our old CTO, who promptly left during the great restructuring of 2018. When billing failed a year later, thanks to another finance streamlining, I stepped in and saved it. No one asked me to, no one authorized it. I just saw the payment declined flag in my alerts and made the call because we were 18 hours from domain expiration and marketing had just launched a $60,000 campaign with it embedded in every asset. I paid $19. 19. I sent the invoice. Crickets, then COVID hit, then layoffs, then budget freezes, and eventually it became one of those, "Oh, right, you still handle that?" mysteries no one wanted to unravel. I brought it up once a year, nobody listened. But now, oh now, I could hear every ignored warning ricocheting through my skull like a fire drill no one ever bothered to practice. They thought digital infrastructure was like plumbing, set it and forget it. But DNS, SSL, SMTP configs, and fallback records, that's not plumbing, that's a symphony. One lazy baton swipe and the whole orchestra starts screaming, and they just fired the conductor. I double-checked everything. Registrar access? Mine. Name servers? Still pointing to their cloud hosting, but easily changeable. Ownership record? Clear as day. I even pulled the HOIs, just to be sure. Yep, my name, my email, my address, the same Gmail I used back when we first migrated from GoDaddy to Namecheap after that breach scare. I closed the tab and leaned back in my chair, breathing smoke toward the ceiling. That dull ache in my gut, the one I'd been carrying around like a background process ever since Jeremy got hired, was gone. Replaced by something colder, sharper. Not revenge, exactly, just awareness. They'd built a castle on sand and laughed when I pointed at the tide chart. Well, let's see how well their engagement funnels hold up when the funnel disappears. I didn't change anything, not yet. Didn't touch the settings, didn't reroute DNS, didn't so much as tweak a character in the TXT records. I just watched, logged in every morning, checked the countdown. 59 days. I was done fixing things they broke. Let the timer run. I didn't have a plan at first. That's the funny part. People always assume revenge is some fire-breathing, whiteboard-scribbled manifesto. But mine wasn't a plan. It was an afterthought. A quiet maybe that crawled out of my peripheral vision one night while I was scrolling through my inbox, trying to unsubscribe from every useless company newsletter I'd ignored during my time in digital purgatory. And there he was, Ryan Walker. Subject line, still trying LOL. Sent 2 weeks ago. Ryan used to be my neighbor back in the pre-gentrified days, back when we both rented crumbling third-floor walk-ups and bonded over broken Wi-Fi and cheap beer. He was always building something online, always hopeful, always 2 clicks from glory, and always missing that last sliver of SEO or speed optimization that separated a dream from a dead domain. His latest was a hyper-specific, handcrafted, ethically sourced dog accessory site. Don't laugh. It actually had good bones. Slick design, decent product photography, SSL cert nailed down. But no traction, just him, a Squarespace shell, and 6 daily visitors, half of which were probably bots. I sent him a message. Still selling the tug toys with the recycled climbing rope? He replied in 6 minutes flat. Yup, still yelling into the void. And just like that, I had a direction. Not revenge, not even justice, just an exit vector, a place for the gravity to pull. I offered to help, told him I had some time, no mention of the domain, not yet. Just, hey, mind if I poke around your back-end config? Over the next week, I quietly tuned his site like an old piano, gutted the image compression, rewired his lazy loading, fixed his header tags, stripped out the bloated plugin some freelancer had dumped on him during a $300 optimization package. He had no idea what I was doing half the time, but he kept thanking me like I was performing surgery on his soul. And yeah, I watched his analytics climb, not by much, just enough. From 6 visitors to 42, then 80, then 100 and change. Still nowhere near profitable, but enough to prove a heartbeat. I never said it out loud, but I was prepping the launch pad because I knew what was coming. Every day I logged into my registrar account like clockwork. That little countdown inching towards 0. Still my name, still my card, still no contact from anyone on their end. Not even a passive-aggressive follow-up from legal. They'd either forgotten or assumed the domain would magically renew through some ethereal cloud-based mercy protocol. Let them assume. Meanwhile, I mapped out the redirect. I didn't even need a full plan, just the DNS keys. The moment that card got charged, the power shifted entirely back to me. I wasn't going to reroute it to malware or some spiteful blog post. That wasn't the point. I was just going to let the traffic keep flowing. Only this time, it wouldn't flow to a VC-choked, buzzword-bloated, rebranded landfill. It would go to Ryan, and to dogs, and to actual, functioning, tangible value. Call it passive resistance. Call it poetic detachment. Call it whatever the hell you want. All I knew was when the timer hit 0, I wouldn't have to lift a finger. Gravity would handle the rest. I woke up that morning the same way I had for the last 60. Black coffee, cracked knuckles, and a ritual login to the registrar. Except this time the dashboard was different. Transaction complete. There it was. $19, charged to my Amex at 3:12 a.m. sharp. No confirmation email from the company, of course, they didn't get one. The billing address was mine. The contact info was mine. The digital deed was once again officially mine for another year. I stared at the screen, coffee halfway to my lips, letting the moment stretch. 0 hour. The domain, their golden goose, the one plastered on billboards and embedded into every QR code and email footer, had just silently renewed to someone they fired for being too reactive. And now I was the sole owner of the bridge they'd been blindly marching across for years. I clicked into the DNS panel, deep breath, one edit, changed the A record, pasted in the IP address I'd saved 2 weeks ago. TTTL, 600 seconds. That was it. 5 minutes until the internet rerouted the blood flow. Their site? Offline. No splash page, no redirect notice, just gone. The hosting still existed, the files still lived on a rented server somewhere, but the signpost, the front door, the beacon Google crawled and customers clicked, now pointed to a different place entirely. I flipped to Ryan's analytics page. 10 visitors, then 34, then 107. By lunch, he was calling me in a panic. Dude, what is happening? I thought my tracker was broken. I didn't say much, just told him to be cool, double-check inventory, and don't touch anything. He asked if this was some hacker thing. I said no, just gravity. By 3:12 p.m., their Slack must have caught fire. I imagined the interns refreshing the site, rechecking VPNs, assuming it was a DNS cache issue. Jeremy probably blamed the back-end team first, because why admit your ignorance when you can weaponize someone else's? By 4:00 p.m., a developer must have run a wise lookup. That's when my name would have popped up. Their jaws must have hit the floor. Meanwhile, I sat in my apartment, barefoot, ashtray full, music low, and watched Ryan's site bloom like a weed through cracked concrete. Cart activity, up, bounce rate, down. Session length, spiking. Someone even added 3 leashes and a biodegradable poop bag holder to their cart from Sweden. We'd never even marketed to Europe. The absurdity of it hit me all at once. A global brand backed by millions with a 15-person marketing team and a caffeine-fueled visionary at the helm, outsmarted by one unpaid invoice and a woman they discarded without ceremony. I didn't smile, I didn't gloat, I just watched. Let the silence settle, let the systems hum, let the analytics tick upward, quietly, relentlessly, on the wrong site. Catharsis doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just $19 and a redirect. Sometimes that's all it takes to burn a kingdom down. The meltdown started quietly. A few 404s here, a site unreachable ping there. At first, they probably assumed the issue was internal. Cache clearing, VPN hiccup, maybe a bad deployment. But then the ads kept running. Tens of thousands of dollars in paid campaigns, all funneling into a digital black hole. Click, error, click, blank, click, not found. By 11 a.m., their customer support line was backed up like a Sunday church lot after a snowstorm. Customers couldn't log in. Checkout pages were dead. One woman apparently called in sobbing because she needed a replacement for a subscription order she thought had been discontinued. Meanwhile, every automated tool was still spending ad dollars like nothing was wrong. That's the thing about smart systems. They're only as smart as the people monitoring them. And the people monitoring them fired me. I don't have all the details of what happened inside, but a friend still in product forwarded me a screenshot around 1:32 p.m. It was from the Marketing Ops Crisis channel they'd spun up in Slack. Who TF changed the domain? The replies spiraled fast. Finger pointing, buzzwords, one junior dev suggesting someone check Cloudflare, Jeremy dropping his usual genius-level contribution. Try toggling DNS off-on. By 2:00 p.m., they were in full crisis mode. Emergency Zoom calls, managers shouting through webcams, blaming deployment pipelines, vendor outages, Mercury retrograde, anything but incompetence. And then someone, bless their tired, underpaid heart, asked the question. Wait, who registered the domain originally? Not what server it lived on, not who controlled the hosting, just who owned the name. That's the moment the room must have gone still. One of the devs, Amir, I think, quiet guy from QA, ran a whoas. And there it was. Registrant. Me. Admin contact. Me. Billing. Me. No forwarding address. No legal hold. Just my plain, boring name right there like a forgotten landmine. The screenshots I got after that were glorious. Slack posts trailing off mid-sentence. A comment thread that started with, "Wait, is that her?" Followed by nothing but an emoji reaction. Jeremy tried to recover, of course. Claimed it was a known vendor transition issue and a third-party DNS provider error. But you can't bluff a fire out when it's already consuming the foundation. The CFO joined the call around 3:30 apparently. Didn't say much, just asked for a list of who was in charge of DNS and registrar access prior to the reorg. When they realized no one had that list, because I was the list, it got real quiet. I didn't answer any emails, didn't return any missed calls or urgent calendar invites. They even tried hitting my old work Gmail, like maybe I'd left behind a magical password hidden in the drafts folder. All they got was silence, while their funnel data flatlined, while their sales dashboard bled out, while their brand director, Mr. It's just $19, sat red-faced on a Zoom call, blaming a ghost who no longer worked there. But I wasn't a ghost. I was the ground floor. And when you fire the foundation, don't be surprised when the whole damn building starts to sink. Somewhere between the 6th and 7th urgent in the subject lines they started sending me, they called an emergency board meeting. I didn't need to be there to picture it. The long conference table with the 2 bright LED lights overhead. The glossy brand posters on the wall showing happy customers who now couldn't even access the damn site. And at the end of the room, on the giant flat screen monitor, the CEO, dialed in from London or Bali or wherever corporate exile had sent him to dodge this quarter's disaster. His voice, from what I was told, came in sharp and slow. Who the hell let this happen? Nobody answered at first. A few sipped their coffees like silence might somehow buy them time. Jeremy, allegedly, started talking in circles about legacy handoffs and gaps in registrar visibility, as if tossing corporate glitter over the fire would snuff it out. But then someone in the room, maybe legal, maybe one of the old guard who still remembered how the systems used to run, looked over at the IT chair, the one I used to sit in, still empty. Still warm, probably, from the intern who had been using it to monitor uptime dashboards, while secretly refreshing Reddit and praying nothing exploded. That's when the CEO spoke again, quieter this time. "You fired her, didn't you?" Dead silence. I imagined Jeremy trying to cover his panic with some smug retort, maybe a deflection. But there's only so many buzzwords you can throw before someone notices you've got nothing behind the curtain but an expired domain and an ego wrapped in a blazer. They had to pull the full digital audit by then. And every log, every renewal timestamp, every WOAS lookup screamed the same name. Mine. They fired me for being too cautious. For overcomplicating workflows. For not aligning with marketing's velocity goals. But here's the irony that would have made me laugh if I weren't too busy watching Ryan's e-com traffic spike into the thousands. The most cautious person in the company had been the only thing standing between them and a digital implosion. They thought caution was weakness. They didn't realize it was the only reason they hadn't already tanked. I didn't make a single threat, didn't alter their files, didn't breach a contract. I just kept what was mine. And now, in their most expensive meeting of the year, every executive in that boardroom, every overpaid strategist and vision caster, turned to face an empty chair. They'd never asked what I did. They never read my warnings. And now, with the company bleeding revenue, ad dollars in freefall, and PR dialing for urgent clarification, they realized too late that the person they'd ignored was the only one who'd read the fine print. I don't know if Jeremy cried, but I know he stopped talking. And I know that when the CEO asked who was responsible for managing domain renewals, no one had an answer. Because the answer had walked out calmly, box in hand, 2 months ago, and never looked back. They came at me in waves. First, it was an email from outreach@brandgroupco.com with the subject line, "Urgent clarification regarding domain ownership." It read like someone trying to sound professional while panicking into a keyboard, full of polite desperation. "We believe there may have been a misunderstanding and we'd love to resolve this amicably," as if this was just a fender bender and not a full-scale digital derailment. Then LinkedIn. Messages from Jeremy, the CFO, even that smarmy HR guy who handed me my box like it was a severance gift basket. All of them suddenly remembering my name. All of them trying to connect like we hadn't stood on opposite sides of a silent, burning bridge 2 months ago. Then came the Gmail, my personal, ancient Gmail that I hadn't checked in years unless I was recovering a password or sifting through spam. The subject line just read, "Please." That one was from the CEO's assistant. Cute. I didn't reply at first. Let them marinate, let the panic sweat through their expensive dress shirts while their digital storefront pointed to a recycled rope dog leash instead of their carefully curated lifestyle brand. But eventually I sent a message. Not a novel, just one paragraph. Precise. Surgical. "You never transferred the domain. You never reimbursed me. You never asked." That's it. I waited. 12 hours later, their lawyer emailed me directly. His tone was calmer, smoother, like he thought I'd appreciate the civility. He danced around the words, trying not to say what he was obviously terrified to admit. They had no legal claim, no transfer confirmation, no documentation, not even a reimbursement trail. "Perhaps we can find a reasonable price for transition," he wrote, like this was just a routine domain flip. I responded the next morning. Market rate. No threats, no emotion, just commerce. See, this wasn't revenge. I wasn't blackmailing them. I wasn't demanding a public apology or groveling LinkedIn post. I wasn't posting memes or dragging them through the mud. This wasn't personal. It was business. They treated the domain like an afterthought, so I made it an asset. They ignored the warnings, so I let the timer run out. Now, with 6 figures in ad spend incinerated, a site that redirected to chew toys, and an investor call looming, they were ready to talk. But I wasn't negotiating with panic. I was offering a product. The product just happened to be the name they'd built their identity around. Their lawyer asked for a number. I gave him one. Fair, not inflated. Based on search traffic, conversion value, and the brand equity I had quietly protected for nearly a decade while they were too busy disrupting retail paradigms. He didn't reply right away. Didn't need to. We both knew the price wasn't what burned. It was the fact they had to buy back something they once mocked for being just $19. The most expensive lessons always start cheap. And they just learned what happens when you undervalue the quiet person in the corner who actually knows where the keys are. They paid, eventually. After a few more rounds of we'd like to explore alternate resolution methods, and our internal audit team is still reviewing the transaction record, their legal team blinked, wrote the check, transferred the funds, signed the paperwork, and just like that, the domain was theirs again. But the damage? That wasn't so easily undone. They lost nearly $480,000 in ad spend over 12 days. Billboards, PPC campaigns, influencer launches, all of it funneled into nothingness. SEO rankings cratered. Customer trust took a hit. They're still trying to bandage with chirpy social media posts and desperate email blasts. PR had to issue a statement blaming a temporary provider configuration error, like they tripped over a digital rug. Everyone inside knew better. Jeremy, reassigned pending review, translation, politely escorted out before investors smelled the rot. Last I heard, he's consulting for a startup trying to gamify brand loyalty using NFTs. I wish them luck. I truly do. As for Ryan, his little e-commerce site boomed. The traffic bump turned into traction. Traction turned into sales. He added inventory, hired 2 part-timers, and moved fulfillment out of his garage. He offered me 20% equity in the new LLC, said I'd earned it. I told him no. This wasn't about ownership, not of his store, not of theirs. I just needed to prove something. To myself, to them, to anyone who's ever been written off as paranoid for caring too much about the invisible gears behind the glossy pitch decks. A few weeks after the deal closed, I walked past the old building, just for the hell of it. The lobby was still trying too hard. Same brushed steel, same scent of burnt espresso and recycled ambition. I pulled my old badge from my coat pocket, just stared at it for a second. The plastic was cracked near the corner. I tapped it on the reader, knowing exactly what would happen. Red light, access denied. Of course. I laughed. Not bitterly, not smugly, just finally. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't the fallback. I wasn't the fixer. I wasn't the invisible safety net, stretched beneath people too arrogant to look down. I was gone. They built a brand on borrowed ground. I gave them a chance to claim it. They declined. Then they forgot. And for $19 a year, I bought silence and the final word.